Welcome to Family Focus, a program produced by Family Service Association. I'm your host, Mike Moran. If you've ever seen our program before, you know that this is not our usual studio location. Yes, we are presenting the program remotely, and it is the first new program that we've presented to you since the month of March. So it is great to be back. We're very, very happy to have our guests, who we will introduce in a moment. And we're extremely happy to have the assistance of our good friends at Fall River Community Media on the campus of Bristol Community College for assisting us in bringing you this remote version of Family Focus. We are, quite obviously, all dealing with something that 6 months ago we never thought we would. The coronavirus has had clearly an impact on every aspect of our lives. And with that as a backdrop, there are no better people that I can think of to call upon to talk about this and the implications of this for the families that we serve at our agency than two of our finest professionals, clinicians, and people that are out in the community working with families. It is their titles are longer than I'm going to give them, but they'll appear on the screen as we talk to two great people. Sharon LaFleur, who is associated with as the leader of our community service agency, and also our therapeutic mentoring program and our family resource center. And her right-hand person and a great friend of the community, Allison Haig, who is also involved in a supervisory directorial role in our family resource center and our therapeutic mentoring program. Sharon and Allison, thank you both for being here. It's a pleasure to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
And you've both done the Family Focus program a number of times.
Thanks.
But this is a little bit different, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, we'll try to make it the same in a number of ways in this respect, that when you're both on the program, we always get some great information. Sharon, let me start with you, and I want to give you a scenario and just tell me your reaction to it. And I've thought about this a long time. It's my belief, and it's not unique to me. I'm sure that a lot of people in the field of healthcare and social service have thought about this, that you can, I was reading something today about the way in which so many individuals and families are in really constant fear. Mm-hmm. Either they know someone who has contracted coronavirus, or heaven forbid, someone who has passed away. They know of its implications in terms of it having an impact on every aspect of our lifestyle, the way we educate our kids, whether or not we have an income, if we've lost our job or been furloughed, whether we can pay our rent or pay our mortgage. So that while you and Allison and all of our colleagues customarily work with a lot of families who do have a lot of problems at the very outset, here is a potential problem and an enormous stress on individuals and families who may have been, prior to the onset of COVID, relatively high functioning and doing very well. Can you talk to that a little bit in terms of the kinds of things, the kinds of stresses that families are having to endure with at the current time?
Sure. I think, Mike, you really nailed it on the head. I think it's the intersectionality of all the life domains that are vulnerable to a family. So medical health, mental health, education, employment, financial abilities, food security. And then again, not just impacting the caregiver, but maybe their children, maybe their elderly parents, friends, extended family. So the feelings of vulnerability are just greatly enhanced across every life domain. So the resulting impact is a sense of fear, a sense of isolation, and kind of impending fears of dread, kind of, that, things are not going to go well. So it is an unprecedented time, and families are working really hard to kind of integrate, to feel more secure, to feel better. I think from the outset, everyone has to accept that this is unprecedented. There is no playbook for how to move forward.
Right.
And everyone really needs to, what decisions you make for you and your family are the right decisions for you and your family, not necessarily decisions your neighbor will make or your mother will make. But we have to kind of get a sense of what's going to work for us as individuals and our families.
And you raise a number of interesting points in your response to that question, Sharon. And what comes to mind is that a lot of people are forced to serve in roles that they're unaccustomed to serving in. And you hit on it. And I think the one that immediately comes to mind is parents who, for a period of time, this past late winter and early spring, had to educate their children at home. And many of them felt that they just weren't up to the task. They weren't able to do it. Sure, there were a lot of supports in the school systems mobilized tremendously. And I'd love to get Allison's take on this. When parents were put in a position where they had to deal with their child's learning curve, and were they going to be keeping up with their peers, and was their reading and math and other capabilities going to backslide somehow, adding further to the stress. And a lot of parents who just didn't think that they were up to the task of educating their own children. Did you encounter that, Allison, in your dealings with a lot of families across the spectrum in our greater Fall River community?
We did, Mike. It was been a very stressful spring for so many families. I think not only for the caregivers, but for the students. You know, they were accustomed to a structure and routine every day, going to school, being led by their teachers, being able to socialize with their peers and have all that time together, and everything kind of just shut down. You know, I think we all remember leaving school, work that Friday, thinking we're all going to be returning, and it was announced that Monday students were going to come in and they needed to grab whatever they could, and then everyone went remote. So I think it was just as stressful for the public school districts, the charter schools, the private schools. So there's a lot of anticipation of what this next year looks like. So the anxiety levels are very, very high for many families.
And I think in that early time of mid to late March, so many things seem to be beyond our control. And Sharon, you alluded to that. I can remember in my own case, and it was no different than I'm sure everybody who's watching this program, going to the supermarket and there's shortages. We can't find this. I mean, it's been joked about, and you know, and maybe that humor has been something that has helped us keep our sanity through this whole thing. But you know, our land of plenty has never been stricken with these kinds of shortages on, you know, consumer goods that we take for granted are always going to be on the shelf. And then if you found yourself unemployed, wondering, how am I going to pay for the groceries that I can't even find? Adding immeasurably to the stress that people were experiencing that seemed to kind of hit them out of nowhere. What kind of coping skills take over so that we can, I mean, it's almost like a fight or flight kind of response. From a mental health, behavioral health standpoint, Sharon, talk about that if you would.
Well, I think that, you know, early on, that was what families were kind of unsure as how do they move forward day to day. And those were some very real fears for families who already struggled with food insecurity. And then the cost of groceries have, you know, insurmountably increased during this time. So those are very real things. And I think for individuals, that's the first thing that needs to happen, is kind of be able to accept that things have changed. And then how do we navigate the new systems? And I think people are really working hard and figuring those things out, you know, wearing masks, picking the right time to go to stores, working with other family members to do drop-offs and pickups. We're a very resilient group, us folks, and you see that everywhere. And I think the most important piece is staying connected in some other form. It may not be able to be intimate, present physically, but there are many ways to stay connected to families, to schools, to friends. And that, I think, is what has allowed people, kids, to be resilient, to feel more optimistic about what's ahead.
And Allison, I think of the Family Resource Center where you are each day, suddenly being, like so many of the programs that our agency provides, suddenly being in a circumstance where the services that we provide have never been more needed urgently. And yet, like many other, and I don't refer to our agency as a business, but in some aspects it is, we were shut down. Your door was closed. It's reopened over time. In fact, you and I were both there in the office at the Family Resource Center together last week. But during that time that we were a little bit like we were in handcuffs and couldn't provide the service that we customarily did. What was that like? And what are the things, the resiliency that Sharon refers to? I think of what you folks did at the Family Resource Center to work with funding sources to get activity kits for children so that they could stay connected, be educated, and that families could be together in a as positive way as possible. What was it like for you and your staff at the Family Resource Center during that initial time when everything got turned upside down?
Sure. We were just talking about this as a team a couple of weeks ago, reflecting back. I do think initially Family Service Association's leadership was extremely helpful. I remember Sharon participated in a leadership meeting and she was able to guide me on how to sit with my staff and talk about preparing to kind of leave the office for, we thought maybe 2 weeks. We weren't really sure.
Yeah.
Now we're in week 23, I think, or 25. So that was, very helpful just to kind of initially set a frame with staff to reassure them, to let everyone have time. We tried to sit and think really about what every day looks like. What was the technology we needed at our homes? What was the, paperwork? And we run a lot of groups, so we needed to make sure the facilitators had the parenting facilitator guides. It was stressful, but it was that initial thinking, this is only going to be a couple of weeks. But right away, the community came together as well. And the Family Resource Center is very fortunate to collaborate with the United Way of Greater Fall River and United Neighbors. And they immediately established a COVID-19 community group called Let's Talk Tuesdays. And so we met as a large community. I think in the beginning meetings, we were up to 80 to 90 participants on that call from local community organizations, churches, food pantries, the Fall River Public School System, our charter schools, local banks, really anybody in the community that could join us to just talk about what were the community's initial needs. And right away, we identified, obviously, we needed a food working group to talk about all of the food resources within the community. And we talked about a decompression group, similar to what we've been talking about today. How do we help everyone with their fear and anxiety and stress? And then we talked about educational support. So how can we partner with the local schools, with our families who are now being forced to kind of offer this school environment in their homes? And then kind of an entertainment component. What could we offer the community with fun activities? So initially those working groups started, and the community, again, it was early, recognize that it takes a village, so that we all, not one agency could manage all of those needs or provide the resources, that we all had to work together and identified the strengths within each community partner, what they could offer. And then very fortunate with the local Massachusetts COVID-19 Relief Fund, which was then obviously worked with the Community Foundation of Southeast and United Ways, COVID-19 Relief Fund, and different community partners were able to receive grants to assist with those resources that were needed.
Sharon, I want to get your take on, I'd like you to elaborate, if you could, about something that you said a short while ago when you were talking about Family Service Association and how the senior leadership was so supportive of people within the organization to sort of get our programs back up and running. It was a challenge. Frankly, I don't know how they did it, but from your perspective as someone who works very closely with senior leadership, describe that experience if you could, because suddenly there were things we couldn't do. We had adult day health centers that closed down.
Mhm.
We had after school daycare programs that closed down because the schools were closed, and several of our programs are school based. Take us through the moving parts as to what happened when you spoke to Sharon Ford and said, okay, what do we do now? What do we do tomorrow? What do we do the next day? Just take us through that if you could.
It was quite interesting, the whole process of, I think as a program leader and as a director of programs, there are a lot of people that impacted in the agency, and then all the families that are enrolled with us. And so up front and very clear was that we need to continue to provide services to our enrolled families, and we need to ensure the safety of our staff. So those were our guiding lights in those early days. And then from that, it was very clear kind of what we needed to figure out, how to work remotely, what equipment needed to be available to staff to ensure that families feel comfortable. And then there were other pieces such as insurance. Are we allowed to bill for video conferencing with families?
Exactly.
So answers started coming pretty quickly. It wasn't, I would say it probably was pretty bumpy the first couple weeks, getting our Zoom license, a professional license, so HIPAA was guaranteed. Having staff be comfortable with doing work via video conferencing. Having families be comfortable at the other end. A lot of families wanted to just talk to us on the telephone initially. And I enjoy now looking back to those early days and seeing how very far we've come as a whole agency with providing work via telehealth. It's amazing, and it has such value. Families who prior didn't have transportation are now able to attend their therapy sessions with their therapist because of telehealth. It has such great value. We're advocating for it to stay in place because it really can make a huge difference in a family's ability to maintain multiple appointments with their provider. So we've come a long way, and it's really gone quite well. And I think the comfort level for everyone is there now. And in fact, it's funny, some families, for our therapeutic mentoring program, we are doing some backyard visits now with kids, which everyone's so excited about, keeping social distance. But some of the kids are like, can I do a video call with you today instead? So it's really, again, that resiliency and the ability of everyone to adapt. But those were the guiding mission was ensure the safety of our staff and the families that we have enrolled, and ensure that we continue to provide services to the families. So within that, the answers just kept coming. Certainly the barriers continued, but we just kept working through them.
That's great. We're going to ask you to stand by, Allison and Sharon. We're going to take a short time out and remind our viewers that you once again are watching a new program for the month of September of Family Focus. We'll be back in 1 minute. Please stay tuned.
Hey everybody, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker here. Very simple message. The one thing we know about COVID is it gets passed from person to person, usually through your nose and your mouth. Wearing a mask is the best way to protect yourself and to protect other people who you love, your neighbors, your friends, your family, from COVID-19. It is the best way to stop the spread, and we all need to take advantage of it. So wear a mask. I do.
Welcome back. You're watching Family Focus, a program produced by Family Service Association. This is our remote edition, and we have two terrific guests who are sharing their information and expertise, both veterans of our agency and veterans of the Family Focus program, Sharon LaFleur and Allison Haig. And welcome back, ladies. It's great to have you on the program. Allison, I have to tell you that I can recall a time not too long ago when you spoke at a board of directors meeting of our agency and started to talk about some of the available resources. And I don't think you were working from notes. I think you just had a lot of it in your head, because day in and day out, you're connecting in a miraculous way with a lot of different agencies in the community. And I know you spoke about the Tuesday group that meets via Zoom, and I have the privilege of attending those meetings, but Sharon has responded to just what internally our agency did to sort of get back up and running over a period of time. Talk about your interactions with other agencies. Was it a flurry of phone calls, emails, Zoom meetings, all of the above?
Yeah, I think as a family resource center, it's our job to make sure that we know about all of the resources in the community. You know, we encourage families, we encourage providers to call us and reach out. So we've established many, many great relationships in the community prior to the pandemic. But I think during this time, we've only strengthened so many more as well. So it's been helpful if there's been a need. By collaborating weekly, we can, reach out to one another when an issue presents itself. And everyone just works so well together. Everyone's mission is to serve our community. So it's not just about one organization. Everyone seems to just step up to the plate and wants to help that individual or family. And if we need cleaning products for one of our families, I get 10 replies back. We have this, how can we get it to the family? So we've just been really, really fortunate.
It's interesting that you say that, because I was on the receiving end of a lot of calls like that. A church group calls us and says, we have 75 handmade masks. Can you use them? Absolutely. And we went all over creation to pick up donated items. And there's a fun aspect to it as well, Allison, which seems unlikely, but talk about the videos that your staff have been involved in making, that have been these great, instructive, family-friendly videos that Hope and Jessica on your staff have sent up to YouTube to be viewed by any and all. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think what's been hard is we used to host many different family engagement activities. It was free for families to come to the center. We did arts and crafts, we did movie nights, we did toddler reading activity groups. So we had to think creatively, how do we transition this during the pandemic? And both Hope and Jess also work collaboratively with Greater Fall River Recreation. And they have run numerous groups with them with arts and crafts and a Yum Yum cooking club. And so both of them jumped right in and decided to do those from home. So they do a Zoom recorded activity where they have all the materials. They make sure the family and the children participating know what's needed, and kind of walk through the instructions and mixing and cooking or building, whatever the activity is. And those have been great. And we also had received a grant, and we were able to purchase some intergenerational activities that we're doing with the grandchildren of our grandparents raising grandchildren support group. So we were able to actually do a live Zoom group. We've done about 5 sessions. We did rock painting, sand art, build your own slime kit. We did sensory bottles this last Friday. So those have been really great. And the families are sending us pictures, showing the kids, and we delivered those in person. So that was another way for us to socially distance, check in with our families. And Jessica Sear, one of our family support workers, has been delivering food actually for 20 weeks now to multiple family resource center families, but also local families in need through the YMCA mobile markets. So that's been really great. So we've been able to see our families in person, but safely. And make sure that they have.
Can you give the number, Allison, of the Family Resource Center? Just let people know, because if they call Family Service Association, if they Google us and find our main number, let's give it to them directly, because it does have its own 10-digit number that people can reach you.
Absolutely. It's 508-567-1735. And so sometimes you might catch a staff person there working. We kind of have a few staff coming into the center, but most staff are still working remotely from home, but we will return that call within 24 hours.
And Family Resource Center is just a remarkable facility. It's like one-stop shopping for people who may not know where to turn. They're looking for services. There's a lot of information and referral that your staff give. And there's a lot of things that go on at the center. It's getting busier now. Are you doing more in-house activities, or is it still largely remote?
It's still largely remote. There's been a few individual cases where we might have had to assist someone in person, but we've been able to, utilize Zoom, and we're running our Grandparents Raising Grandchildren Support Group weekly, Tuesday nights at 9. That was our grandparents' request. We run our parent education groups by Zoom weekly, and like I said, some of those Zoom activity groups. So we've done, it's really however the family or individual feels comfortable. We can call by phone, we can do FaceTime, we can do Zoom. All of the staff have the technology available to meet that family where they're most comfortable.
I really happen to think that we don't see the end of this. We've seen the numbers in Massachusetts and in Rhode Island improve. But those in, Sharon, you referred to the fear associated with, contracting COVID or a family member, or the stresses economically and all the other things that you described. This is going to be with us for a while, I suspect. I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that, that whole subject.
I agree. I think our world has changed, and it's going to stay this way for a while and never returning to what it was. We have a better understanding of our vulnerability now. And I think for individuals and families, again, the importance of staying connected, reaching out if you need some help. We're here to help. Our family services as a whole, we're up and running, we're taking referrals. We're executing the services in a wonderful quality way, and we will be able to work with you. And I think for individuals, again, I think the important thing is you don't have to fit into anyone's box right now. You just have to figure out what is best for you and your family, and then communicate that to others, and get the resources you need. And that's what we can all help with, is the resource piece of it.
Well, you both have been just really a godsend to the community, and certainly to our agency. This enormous amount of work that you and your staff, I know you would probably say it all goes to the staff. So we'll certainly make sure that that's acknowledged. But we thank you for everything that you're doing in the community to keep those services that are so essential up and running. And for everything that you do for our agency, and for once again agreeing to be on Family Focus. We appreciate it. It's the most unusual program. I'm sorry?
I said, did I have a choice?
No. Yeah, I'll go up the ladder and make sure that your supervisor says, Sharon, you will be on Family Focus and you'll enjoy it. You're both great guests and great people, and we thank you so very much for being on the program once again. And we thank those of you for watching at home and on your phone and on your laptop this edition of Family Focus. And thanks to our good friends at Fall River Community Media for the technical assistance that without which we could not bring you this program. It's a great pleasure to be back, and we're here to stay. Family Focus. We thank you so much, and until next time, please take care.